Welcome to the Laws of Style, featuring conversations on creativity, fashion, and the law from the leading edge of our economy and culture. Hosted by noted fashion lawyer Douglas Hand.
Hello and welcome to the Laws of Style. I'm your host, Douglas Hand, and today I'm joined by one of the founders of Flying Solo, Elizabeth Solomeina. Elizabeth, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Well, so just to kick it off, Flying Solo, it's a hub. I've known about it for a few years, and I know I've been to some of your activations, but for those that don't know, a hub for independent designers, but also professionals adjacent to the fashion industry and support the fashion industry and really make the fashion industry come to life. How did Flying Solo come about?
Well, it was 10 years ago, and it started with designers. I'm one of the designers myself, so I'm a jewelry designer, and turns out there is a real problem for an independent brand when you get to a certain size. So you already start getting customers, you figure out your production, so you grow to a certain size. And then how do you get from that size to the big magazines, to be in retail where it's important to get bigger audiences? So that's where majority of young brands get stuck. Turns out I wasn't alone, and I met a lot of other designers that were having the same exact problem. Basically, we were looking for something like Flying Solo, but it just didn't exist. So we decided to create one. We had originally we had 10 designers that started Flying Solo. So they are founding designers of the brand. And we started small. We started with 10 of us. It quickly became 30, 50, 100. Now we all manage over 250 brands between our New York and Paris stores. And what's we realized is that collaborating instead of competing under the same roof was something that we're supposed to do as creatives. And let me remind you, it was 2016, so collaborations between designers weren't popular at all. Right now, we talk all about this designer collaborating with that brand, and it's became a normal thing. But back in the day, 10 years ago, it was not a thing at all. And people looked at us like we were crazy, that will never happen because there are so many egos under the same roof, and we all end up fighting and breaking apart. But turns out we became stronger than ever. So 10 years later, Flying Solo is bigger, stronger, and doing new initiatives. So we are very, very proud of everything that we get to accomplish.
Well, we'll get to those new initiatives, and they are very exciting. But back to the system. What is broken or what is problematic with the current system as it presents itself to emerging designers as opposed to those established houses or mass apparel retailers?
Well, there are two big problems with an old system and why it doesn't really work anymore. So first is the cost of entering. And if you are an independent brand, and let's say you get noticed by Saks, they will ask you for a minimum order that you have to finance upfront. They will take you to, let's say they purchase it for the upcoming fall. So you have to finance it upfront. They'll take it, and only 90 days after they receive it, they might start paying you. And we all know that certain brands are no longer even paying the young brands. So that will put you in a big hole because all this time you don't have the money. And if for whatever reason you don't sell, and that is often a big problem with independent brands, once you don't know what you're doing, it's unlikely to be completely sold out from your very first collection. So they either return a collection and ask you to buy it back, which is a very common practice right now, or even if you end up keeping it and they not end up selling it, then you're not going to be back the next season. So that's the first problem. So the cost of it and how expensive it is. And I want to just give perspective to young brands. They'll ask for 100, 200, 500 of each items. So you need to finance all of it upfront in order to be in those stores. So second, and I think it's the biggest problem why wholesale is like will stop existing very, very soon, in my humble opinion, is that we used to live in the world like 10, 20, 30 years ago when we see something in a magazine. And then we were willing to wait for it to come to the stores and patiently wait for a new collection. So that was the norm. Right now, all of us see something in social media and want it immediately. None of us want to wait 6 to 8 months to purchase a dress that I'm excited about today. And that's what really shifted. 8 months from now, I would not remember to even check out the dress, the one that I was just excited about. So we want everything now, or maybe overnight, or the worst case scenario, maybe 1 or 2 weeks we're willing to wait for something, and then we just completely forget about it. So the wholesale model just doesn't apply anymore, because with wholesale you have to, as a buyer, you have to purchase in advance, then the designer has to produce, and only then you can purchase as a final consumer. So right now on demand model works much better. So designers who do drops of the collection, so who do see now buy now, are much more successful and has significantly more potential. Yes, all the brands can still pull it off because we buy a lot of things because of the brand itself, not necessarily because of the collection, but it will slowly start dying out, at least to what we're seeing in the world right now. And because of that, in my opinion, big stores start closing down, their wholesale orders become smaller and smaller. And if you go to the stores in general, they no longer take risks on young brands anyway. So they try to buy the bulk of the thing in a very safe mode, so they can, no matter how fashion change and how the preference change, they can still sell it half a year later. So I think that part is really broken and it needs to be fixed. It needs to be a different model. It's need to start exist so younger brands can start selling in the stores again. And I mean, we're addressing part of it as Flying Solo, so younger brands can bring their creations right away in our store and sell it right away. And I'm sure there will be some adjustments in the industry that allow that creativity to flow.
Well, very well thought out, very comprehensive answer. And you're absolutely right. I mean, part of it is the power dynamic, or the dissymmetry between the power that the retailer has and the lack of power that, I'll say, young brands have, emerging brands, because the established houses do have power. You know, if you are Dior, every retailer wants you, and you have some leverage to demand better terms, and not have, chargebacks, and not have to wait 90 days perhaps. And then the other element of just the shifting consumer behavior, which you've isolated. I mean, we do want it now. We expect to get it now. And that's not the normal model. It was normally that's the reason the upcoming fashion week, is still spring summer of 26, and we're nowhere near spring summer of 26, because it will show and the buyers will place their orders, and then production starts. So you're absolutely right about sort of the systemic problems, and maybe it's best not to say it's broken, it's just evolving, it's just changing. But yeah, specifically to how Flying Solo does help, so you provide a retail platform for those designers to showcase their designs. How else do you help?
So we do three main things. So we have retail stores where designers can immediately bring their product and test the market, which we believe is one of the most important things when you are a very young brand. So what often happens is you don't know what you don't know. And the very first production is not going to be sold out 100%. And it just something that you need to expect. You will have to go through multiple productions before you get the fit right, before you get it right for the customer. And it's part of the journey. So it's not because you just a bad designer. No, everybody goes through those cycles. Second thing that we do for independent brands is we do press for them. So while retail is important, press is as important for credibility's sake. Yes, magazines do no longer work like they used to. It used to be that you open Vogue, you see something, you're like, oh, I'd like to purchase it. You find it somewhere in the store and purchase it. Obviously, that's not how the world works anymore. However, what happens is being placed in Vogue, Elle Harper's, any of the big magazines or any mid-sized magazines gives a lot of credibility to the brand. So think of yourself as a consumer. You go through Instagram, let's say, and see something pretty, some unknown brand that you never heard of. You go to their page and see, oh, this is very pretty. This is my style. I would like to try it. And when you see on the same page that this brand was featured in Vogue, in Harper's, somewhere else, you know that there is a credibility of the industry behind. It's like, oh, someone else know that is good. Means that they've been in the market for some time, so most likely they'll deliver to me. Someone else said that they're good, so the industry behind them. And you start shifting your perspective. You're like, oh, it's not just a cool brand. It's the brand that already I can put my trust behind. So that's how press works for young brands. And third, what we do is fashion weeks. So fashion weeks are very expensive thing for any young brand. And a lot of designers, even mid to big size designers, start giving up on doing fashion shows because it's truly so expensive. So just to give you a range, a show in New York or Paris, if you're doing it independently and you want a decent looking venue, decent looking models, I mean, so it will actually be on the level of good production, you'll spend anywhere from 150 to 250, $100,000 just to do a decent production and have some kind of PR represents you and do pictures and videos.
Yeah.
So,
I think
and
most
that
consumers don't recognize that. They think it's a bunch of chairs and a catwalk,
ex
that should be $5,000, and they're absolutely wrong.
exactly. And that's why a lot of people decide not to do fashion shows anymore. However, I don't think that we should fashion should be fun. And you as a designer go to the fashion industry to have all those amazing parties and runway shows and bring people. And we as a fashion industry very much enjoy all of those things. And we love to bring our clients to our shows, the people that press to the shows, and to talk more about the brand. But at the cost that it is for production itself is not sustainable to do on your own. So what we do is we do a big show of many brands under the same roof. So the cost is significantly lower for each individual brand. And this is the way they get to showcase in a very quality production in front of the important editors. And they get all this quality without a huge cost that they otherwise will have to put in to produce their own show.
Well, so let me ask you, there are organizations. The CFDA comes to mind, right? American Apparel and Footwear Association. Why haven't they done what you're doing?
I don't know. I cannot speak on their behalf. I do think that they were built in a certain way, and how they were built was working for the majority of the lifetime of the organization. And it was great. They were very important at the time when they appeared, and they helped a lot of brands. But me personally, I don't think that that approach works any longer. So it used to be gatekeepers of the fashion industry. So it used to be that only if you seen by certain people, you become a brand and then you get to stores. Right now, that's no longer a case. You can become a brand. Just think about it. You can make something, put it out on social media, create a following, and you will become as important brand as any others that had to go through different channels back in the day. So you do not need to go through certain people anymore. And those organizations used to be those certain people. So if you get introduced, then you get introduced to the whole panel of people, and then you become important. So there are many, many ways right now. So I think system change and organizations need to change as well.
Well, that's a great comment. I mean, I do think that is largely right in my experience. And part of the problem with that system as well is it really is predicated upon the personality a lot of the designer and their social ability and just how gregarious they are. And in my experience, many designers are introverts. They don't really want to be out in front glad handing people and mixing with editors. And so it is an interesting time. What I'll ask, this is a question I ask a lot of my um, guests, and I'll be interested in your answer. I mean, it the barriers to entry are very low when you have these social media platforms and you can have a direct consumer presence even on your own website. But the gatekeepers that were the gatekeepers in the old model, the editors and the buyers, in a sense, have been replaced by gatekeepers that are, I guess, less astute aesthetically and more hard-nosed business-wise. And by that I mean just SEO. That when you put something out there, even if it's fantastic, it's so hard for it to really gain traction because there's so much noise from the brands that are already just spending millions of dollars. So how do you address that? I mean, what is the solution for that? Where is the area where SEO doesn't matter and you can find genuine talent amidst the noise, the cacophony of people throwing money at being in front of line and being, first up on Instagram, even though, it's a mass brand.
Of course. Well, when you're a young brand, you should not think of how to get on the top or top page of Google. What you need to think of how to create your core audience. Um, Maybe start from a very tiny one. So you created a collection, you're very proud of it, and now you can release it to the world. Your very first customers most likely will become your friends and family that you're going together, either at your home or do some kind of pop-up, and they'll be the first one to try it on and possibly to purchase. Those will be your biggest fans. After that, you start growing that circle a little bigger. So friends of a friend. So let's say your friends wear your dress and go out into the world. Other people notice, their friends will notice, and they're like, who is this new brand? Like, oh my God, this is my friend. She's so talented. Oh, he's so talented. And check it out. She's having a new pop-up, or she's doing an open studio. Come over and maybe you can purchase some pieces too. And that's how your audience start growing. So the very beginning, I will say, do not worry about any of the SEO Google rankings because you just won't get there yet. Worry about the cultivating your small community. So every customer that purchase something from you, whether it's one thing or multiple things, can become your returning customer. So if you treat them well, if you keep inviting them to events, they will become your fans, and those fans will spread the word about you. So after that, you can already start growing a little more and worry about the bigger things. But I would say that is your core, and don't worry that you're not on the level of the big ones yet. It just, you need to be patient in order to get there.
It's very interesting. I mean, I feel like in the 90s and the aughts. So I was around and practicing law at that time, so I know what the fashion industry was like. The goal of every designer, even if they were coming out of Parsons or FIT or St. Martin's, was to become $1 billion brand. That was the goal. And that requires obviously a lot of concessions that are made, both in terms of offloading the management of the business and certain decision making to people who have invested in the business, as well as just creative. I mean, you just can't get that big within the time frame that private equity wants you to, without making those kinds of sacrifices. So what I find interesting in what you're saying is it's not scalable, what you're saying, from the perspective of those investors. They would say, well, how long will that take before you get to 10 million? And it might take years. It might take 8 years, right? That's not their horizon. But if you love what you do and you are able to make enough to put food on the table and a roof over your head and continue to do what you love, and raise a family, and I don't know everybody's personal economics, but there are sacrifices that have to be made when you choose a creative profession. But if you can do that and really control it, in the sense that you are selling directly to your customer, and you've this middleman, this wholesale account, the retailer is taken out of that equation, it's extremely empowering, because you realize, I don't need to be $1 billion brand. I could do $2 million a year every year and live very comfortably and serve my little village, which, as we know, isn't really a village. Fashion is global. So, if you have that 150 customer base, they're going to be all over the planet. You're going to be shipping your wares to everywhere. I think that that's a thrilling possibility for a lot of designers, and I'm glad to hear you articulate it. So let me pivot, because you do have, I believe it's going to be in the summer, an event coming up, the Flying Solo Fashion Awards. So tell us about that.
Absolutely. Well, it's something that we're thinking of for a very long time, but we're finally going to do it in June 2016. And I personally was always fascinated as how come film industries has Oscars, we have multiple big events in music, theater, TV, but somehow fashion never awarded those who are behind the scenes, who work tirelessly on including hair and makeup, set designers, photographers. So this whole big production that makes the industry work was never celebrated. We celebrate designers, of course, and there are multiple awards for that, but the whole thing was never celebrated. On top of it, fashion industry is the one that absolutely loves to dress up and party and love all the red carpets and love all the big events. So it's the most fitting thing for the entire industry, but it's never been done. So to address that, we decided to do Flying Solo Awards, and applications are already open for 9 categories. It's absolutely free to submit. So anyone who is in the creative industry, feel free to submit your applications.
Elizabeth, what are those categories? I think our listeners would love to
So
hear.
those categories will include hair, makeup, set designer, photographer, model, best editorial accessory, best editorial garment, and best editorial. I'm missing one, but you can look it up.
We'll put it
our
up on the
website.
screen,
Yeah.
and we'll have a full list, but that's great.
Yes, and what's amazing is we already, once we start reaching out to people about this event, so many wonderful people wanted to join us as judges. So we have Sophia Ellis-Bextor. Obviously, everybody knows her as a British singer who sings The Murder of the Dance Floor. We also have Ty Hunter, who was a Beyonce stylist for over 15 years, and every music video that you probably remember from Beyonce, early Beyonce, that was all him. We have a wonderful panel that is going to choose their short list of each category. So yeah, feel free to apply, and I really encourage everybody to do so, because it's not only the prestige, but it's also something that it might put you on the global stage. So when shortlist is going to be selected, we are doing the whole promotion around it, including the press route and making sure that those who are selected will be put on the global stage. So applications open, please apply.
I'm glad you brought up the global aspect, because to distinguish flying solo from, say, the CFDA or American Apparel and Footwear Association, you are a global organization, correct? There is not, membership is not limited to or restricted to you being domiciled here in the US.
That is correct, yes. And I think this is the way fashion operates right now anyway. So we are exposed to designers from all over the world, and they should be represented in global hubs like New York and Paris, because we became so international right now. People travel, they go to different places. Designers should appear in those major cities. Yes, so we are definitely global.
No, that's one of the things that I love about travel. My wife and I are always shopping. Look, you find so many brands that you never have access to here in the US. And even, the algorithm of Instagram or what, it just doesn't show you, unless and until you're actually in that country, whether it's Colombia or it's Morocco or, and you're finding these new resources. And it's a beautiful thing, because the way that people choose to dress and the way designers choose to select their designs is unique in ways in those bubbles. Well, so let me ask you. I mean, so you've been in the fashion industry, jewelry designer, and steward of this organization, and most people would consider the fashion industry to be so glamorous. Everything that happens in the fashion industry involves flashing light bulbs, and everybody is decked out and on a red carpet. Has that been true in your experience, or are there moments where you were like, oh my God, I'm actually here doing this, and this is glamorous, or have there been moments where it's like you're packing boxes in a in a room that are going to be shipped out, and you're like, I can't believe how unglamorous this is?
Well, couple things. When you start as a designer, first thing that you're going to realize is that you went to that industry, that super glamorous industry, as you're describing it, with the hopes of being in the center of photo shoots, being in front of the editors, being part of all those fashion shows. So imagine like tons of people surrounding you, looking at your designs, celebrating you. But reality of starting a brand is you are there in your own studio alone with your designs. So that's the beginning of pretty much every brand. And most likely at the beginning, maybe you can have an assistant, but most likely you're there alone, just going night over night, trying to figure out how to make that collection perfect. So that's the first part of your journey. And that's honestly that was a big part of why Flying Solo was created, because we felt so lonely in our journey. So just connecting with other designers was already a big thing for us. And yes, and then you get to grow somewhat and you start getting those glimpses and pieces. No one will ever forget their first big magazine. So for me, for our jewelry brand, it was New York Times, when one of the rings were featured there. And you open the page and you're like, I cannot believe that something that I created
Yeah.
is on that page. Someone else thought is great, and that someone is really big. And I'll never forget how the first Vogue, it was Vogue Korea, came out with a bunch of designers from Flying. So that was our very big, the very first big editorial. And I remember I literally ran to a Koreatown, found it like in printed version, ran back to Flying Solo. We had a store on Mulberry Street at the time, and show it to designers that were featured there. And oh my God, I think we're screaming, crying, laughing like for a good chunk of the day that day. You'll never forget that feeling. So you start getting like little glimpses and things about the fashion industry. And then it's your first fashion show. first fashion show is such a roller coaster of emotions. It's like at certain times it feels it's too much and you cannot handle it. It goes from a lot of work to ups and downs because you're like, oh my God, it's not fitting, and then you have to replace something, and you have to, most likely you want to sleep the night before the show. And then that moment when the model walk in your collection on the runway and everybody watches it, and you as a designer get out after that and everybody's clapping and celebrate. I think the first time around is the most surreal moment you can ever have. You just can, it's impossible to get happier. At least that's how we experienced it, our very first show with Flying Solo. And yeah, and then you start getting those little things. But the reality of a designer is, except those, if we put apart all those glamorous moments, it will be 97, 95, 97% of routine, and probably only 3 to 5 of designing and really creating. And it's something that I think designers need to prepare themselves to do, because if you expect a design, creating a brand, not just designing for someone, but creating a brand is going to be 95% designing, you just might have a very rude awakening. Unless you have a partner, so it's two of you, one will do business and one is going to do creative. That's also a good path. If you can have someone who you can trust, and trust is a very big thing in starting a business, and who can support your creative but do business at the same time. So yeah, just keep all of that in mind. But I don't want to discount how fun the industry could be and how rewarding it could be to you as a designer, because I believe you should go to be a fashion designer only if you have that feeling inside of you, that you have something, that you're something created, and just it need to get out. So if you have that feeling, I mean, you just have to go to the fashion industry. You have to get it out somehow, otherwise you'll be very sad as an individual. So go for it, just know what to expect, and then you'll definitely have fun along the way.
Well, that's great. And I think, you know, one of the nice things about that calling to being a fashion designer is, unlike the calling to being an artist, you know, a painter, or a photographer. I mean, you are creating lovely things in those occupations, but they are pretty superfluous. I mean, they're basically framed and put on a wall, as opposed to what a designer creates and the restrictions on a designer to create something that people can wear and can function as a garment, but also be so personal to them. Because unlike putting it on your wall, you are putting it on yourself, and so it's a very intimate relationship. Well, I always like to, you know, spend a little bit of time getting to know, you know, the actual guest. You've spoken a lot, and you are a great steward of Flying Solo. But for you personally, you know, are there any style avatars, women or men, that, you know, really led you into design, or that influence your personal style?
Well, definitely there are a lot of inspiring people in the fashion industry right now. And I'll kind of name a few from both worlds. So I think one of the like from the big ones that all of us know is Victoria Beckham, who kind of had like two lives in one already. She was a successful singer, and then she became a fashion designer. And I know that it wasn't easy for her, and still probably not, but she did it, and she's recognized on global stage. But I also want to highlight there are true personal inspirations to me, the designers that I saw from the beginning or beginning of their journey to become big global brands right now. And one of them is both designers were part of Flying Solo, and one of them is called Apari. They literally came to Flying Solo on the second month of the creation of their company. So they knew nothing about anything. So they just wanted to create something cool, and they went through multiple cycles of first being a shoe brand, then they became an apparel brand, and then they landed to be a outerwear brand that specialized in vegan fur and leather, and that became their core. And now they're international, they're very well known here in New York. When it gets cold like it is right now in New York City, you'll start seeing those colorful, beautiful clothes. And I personally know that it's Sapri because I saw their whole growth and how they found their niche. So proud of those girls that created it. And we're still really good friends. Their office is like a few blocks from Flying Solo, so we run into each other quite often. And what's most amazing is they attribute a lot of their early success to Flying Solo, because they literally said, we had to experiment in order for us to understand who we are as a brand and be able to pivot and find out like how to move forward. So we gave them all of that, and they literally left Flying Solo like 3 years later because they got I remember how Emily, one of the co-founders, called me. Is like, hey, Elizabeth, can you please open the store 2 hours early? And I really need a meeting room. We don't have an office yet, but can you just, I was like, absolutely. I was like, what's going on? She's like, actually, Saks is coming to see our collection, and it's all of a sudden, and it's a last minute thing, but we cannot say no to Saks. And it just, yes, and they place an order right then and there. And but by the time they already figure out their production, they went through multiple iterations, and they were truly ready for that. And from that time, the story, like, they keep growing. And another brand that personally inspired me, I think the founder, Jenny, is such an inspiration to a lot of young brands, is Freya, and it's a bag brand. She also been with us. She didn't come from day one of Freya, but she came when she started already doing quite a bit of direct to consumer through her website, but she needed a retail partner because she said, like, I could not possibly think of opening the store right now, but I needed physical presence, and it's best if it will be you guys. So the person that literally claims that is like, I didn't start as a designer. I started as a businesswoman and was trying to solve a problem. So she wanted to have a best work bag that ever existed, and she was on a journey to create one. And it was multiple things that went wrong, and how she started and where she was. But now what she publicly disclosing on her channels. So when she came to Flying Solo, I think she said that she was doing a little over $1 million through all her channels in revenue. And when she left Flying Solo, she was doing over 10. And this is an incredible story of how a founder can grow her own brand, just being laser focused. She was always laser focused on something that people want and how she can sell it. So she's like, I didn't get distracted by all the different colors that I can do, all the designs that I personally want to do, because all of a sudden when you have a background, it's like you want to experiment, you want to create something for yourself. It's like, no, I was focused on what I can sell with good margins so I can reinvest back so I can keep growing my brand. So she's a brilliant owner of the brand, and I think inspiration to a lot of young brands. So I definitely encourage you to look up her story, because this is how you grow your brand from zero to amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, 10 million is a great number. And if you really control your business and it's closely held, you're taking home quite a bit of money. I mean, you're living very comfortably, which is a wonderful thing when you're doing what you love. Well, so for you, again, what is the difference between fashion and style?
Well, I think they overlap somewhat, but style is something timeless. While fashion will go through phases, and it's much fashion is much closer to trends and what's trendy right now. Style is something personal that you develop throughout your lifetime, if you're lucky, I guess. And style also keeps evolving, but it involves with you, not necessarily the outside world. So that's how I define that.
No, that's perfect. Well, so we have seen, and I'm sure among the designers that Flying Solo supports, uh, a real confluence of design that is not gender specific. If we go back decades, there was a clear menswear, there was a clear women's wear. Now we have brands that are really just not gender specific at all. Do you feel that that is the future, or is that just a trend where, okay, it's of the moment, but men's bodies are different than women's bodies, and therefore there'll always be this bifurcation?
Well, I think everybody is different, has a different body. That's first what we need to acknowledge. And definitely believe that the future of fashion is will not have a gender anymore in the way we think of gender right now. Because I personally believe that something that I put on really fits me, that should be an item that I want to take home with me. So it shouldn't be like, well, this is for a man and this is for a woman. You try it on and you have to decide how you feel in it. And again, bodies are so different. And just thinking of, oh, majority of female bodies will be like this and majority of male bodies will be like this. Therefore, it's for men, this is for women. Within each of the gender will be different body types, and if you happen to be not the average one from the category, then what?
Right.
Are you going to just be labeled as wearing a different gender, or how is it going to even play out? So I really think that just giving fashion should be about choice, and should be about you wear however you want and whatever makes you feel the most unique and happy and express your own creativity. So yeah, I think this is the first industry that have to change it.
It's interesting. We started about how flying solo and the evolving retail landscape means that a lot of brands have direct relationships with their consumers. And I think men's fashion and women's fashion is largely a construct, not of brands, but of retail stores, where they have sections and they have buyers for each particular. And, once you get out of that system, you certainly do have the ability to, just create garments, and whoever wants to purchase them purchases them. I know my wife and I swap apparel a lot. And it's great. She's a little smaller than me, but we make it work, particularly with outerwear. And I think clothes are clothes, and I feel as a man, often women have a lot more choices.
That is true.
Menswear tends to have a more restricted design aesthetic than women's wear. Um, but no, I think I tend to agree with you on that. Somewhat related question. I mean, we've talked about success as a designer, and sometimes that success is associated with being commercial, and there is a bit of a stigma amongst the highbrow design community that being commercial is not being artistic. Do you feel that that somewhat holds, or are there areas where being commercial is also showing your artistic ability?
Well, I think first of all, we should remove that stigma, because reality of it is of business is that if you have enough money in the business to continue, you can continue. If you ran out of money, no matter how creative and artistic and the most interesting designs you create, you're out of money, so you cannot continue. So the having money basically allows you to experiment more, continue your journey. So let's definitely remove that stigma. And while fashion is definitely an art form and any creator should feel this way, but it's also something that is going to be practically worn by people. And every designer need to understand that there is definitely a subsegment of people that want to express themselves to the fullest and wear crazy designs on maybe on the red carpet or maybe even in real life. That is not the majority. So if you want to specialize on the niche of a niche, great, but most likely there is much more room in the space where just the people that want to wear something every day live. And so, and it doesn't mean that you have to do something very basic to serve that. Something very basic is already created by all the big brands, so you do not need to compete in that space. But bring something fun to life to people that still want to express themselves, but maybe will do it on a smaller scale, maybe something more appropriate for their lifestyle. And that's, I think, when you become a really successful brand. So I would highly advise every young designer just to get it out of their head that if you choose to do something more commercial and choose to concentrate on the sales, you are failing as an artist. You're not. You just allowing yourself to continue the journey because your business is generating money.
Well, so how does that translate? We started with brand collaborations being much more the norm today, and obviously brand collaborations do have an element of, if you're collaborating with another independent designer, then great, it's all independent, it's all free. But if you're collaborating with Gap, then the world knows that Gap is getting a little bit of your sizzle as an independent designer, because Gap is certainly not associated with independent design. I know many people at Gap. I love Gap, but they would say the same thing. So what are your thoughts on collaborations in general, how brands should approach them? I mean, maybe a little bit of this, Elizabeth, is advice to young brands as they approach collaborations.
Sure. Well, first of all, there is no right or wrong ways to do things in fashion, because fashion meant to be innovative, and it's all about young creative energy that just should just get out. So if you're a young brand and offer the collaboration with Gap and it's something that you want to do, don't feel like a sellout. Just do it and do it to the best of your ability and bring it to those customers who may not otherwise be able to afford your designs, because most likely as a dependent brand, you manufacture at a higher cost, so therefore you have to sell your designs at a higher cost. And if it doesn't feel right, if it's absolutely against everything that you believe in, I mean, don't betray yourself. Collaborate with someone that feels a good fit for you. But collaboration is important thing in a creative industry, and it's for two main reasons. First, as a creative, we meant to collaborate, and that was always very surprising to me in the fashion industry when I just entered, when everybody was just against each other back in the day. And I came from other creative industries, so I was in film and I was in video production, and before I was in graphic design. So any of those industries were very collaborative. So no project goes just by one person. Like one person cannot create a big project. So we were always collaborating. You always bounce ideas of each other. And that was the whole fun of being a creative. I came to the fashion industry 10 years ago and I was like, wow, people choose to be alone here and just hide their ideas and not to show it to other creatives, just to bounce ideas of each other. That's kind of weird. It's most likely it's going to change. And of course, I met a lot of people that were thinking the same way, and we start bouncing ideas of each other, and it felt so great. So obviously, collaboration is much more happening right now, and you just have a lot of fun if you find another creative that kind of supports you, and it helps you as a creative to express yourself in a different way. So you usually already have your style and brand established, but that literally gives you permission to be different. So now you're not just you collaborating, so you can do a different type of collection. It's just
Like a
good for your
little
soul as an
diffusion
artist.
bubble that you get to fill. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just really good for your soul as an artist. Just do that. And on the more practical level, it's really good for audiences, because anytime you get to collaborate with someone, you're basically attracting their audience as well. Obviously, not just collaborate on the collection, you have to collaborate on the social media post and any kind of media exposure if you choose to do that, because this way your audience get to expose to their designs and their audience get to expose to your design. So it's double win for everybody. So do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what are some of the collaborations over the last 5 years that you've said, oh my God, that was amazing?
Well, I'll talk about Flying Solos collaborations,
Good.
and we literally collaborate on every fashion week. Accessory designers will collaborate with clothing brands. And this is the way we're going to showcase them on the runway. And what's super fun about it is if designers showcasing season over season with us, they start collaborating ahead of time. So they literally will create collections together and think about it ahead of time. And it's super fun. Yes, I see a lot of like them maybe disagreeing on certain things and then coming together, but it's fun. I think this is why we even went to the fashion industry, to have all those little moments. So yeah, I think those were the most fun memories of collaborations throughout years.
Well, so let's go back to sort of big business apparel. What are your thoughts? LVMH, Kering, even Richemont to a degree, and Capri Holdings and Tapestry here in the U.S. Have had this portfolio approach where they've aggregated brands and they bring some efficiencies to those brands. They haven't made a lot of acquisitions recently. I think we both know that. But what do you think of that model? And as you advise flying solo, brands that look to flying solo for advice, if they were approached by one of those large conglomerate houses, what would you say to them in terms of, potentially being acquired?
Well, it depends what you want at the time of the journey that you at. So if you are at the point when you want to cash out, and there is nothing wrong with that, by the way, you work really hard, and when you feel that this journey have to be over in order to a new journey for you to begin, you might just sell. And this is, or being acquired and have a contract that you are still a creative director for a few years and then you leave. It's totally fine. You can take the cash. There is nothing wrong with it. But if you're looking to continue your journey and you have still a lot of ideas that you want to express and experiment, keep in mind that if you get any kind of acquisition or even partially being acquired, you will now have another bosses on top of it. So now you have to do what they say. If you're okay with it and this is for your company to grow, etc., it's totally fine. But just keep that in mind, because I feel what a lot of the times happens is creatives think that getting the money as an investment or acquisition is, well, it's just the money, nothing will change, but now I have more money. Reality of it is now you are employed by someone else. Maybe you still maintain a chunk of your company, but if majority belong to someone else, they have the final say. So you just have to understand that. And again, it's no good or bad way of doing things. You just need to know the difference.
Yeah. Well, we're getting close to the hour. Let me just ask one final question on the role of influencers in the industry. I mean, we have seen Instagram and TikTok really, be able to get brands out there in a very organic way through influencers. I mean, what are your thoughts on the influencer economy, if you will, because we now know that many of them, I mean, if they're going to align themselves with a brand, unless they're good friends with the designers, they are charging for that. What are your thoughts on how it has played out to date, and then how it may evolve in the future?
Uh, there are obviously were different stages of the influencer industry, and at the core of it, it's a very positive model because it's someone else talks about your product to their whole social media world, and it's a great thing. But obviously, it's also came to a point when getting someone big is too expensive and just unreasonable for your brand. So what I would personally say to a younger brands, don't aim to those big influencers. They promote so many products, and your product with the amount of you spend just won't be as noticed. Try to get influencers as what will be called like the smaller ones, the ones that truly align with your brand. And
Micro,
it's, yeah,
micro.
micro influencers, the ones that already love your collection. So the most positive results that our brand saw with influencer collaborating is collaborating with those who already were purchasing their brand. They just now have a little extra incentive, and sometimes it just flows from the brand, or maybe little perks here and there, maybe invited to their shows, or maybe invited to the events, or being kind of in the front of center of it. So collaborate with those first, and because they're already a big fan of your brand, and they'll be wearing it, and they will not be just wearing it on their Instagram account. They'll be wearing it in real life. And when people will be asking them about your pieces, they will be like, well, this is from this and this brand. It's amazing. Go check it out. And it will be much more organic approach. So concentrate on those first. And yes, it's still expensive for you, or often for you to gift items to those influencers, especially if your brand is expensive to produce. But try to see how you can work it out. Maybe gift some stuff, maybe lend them another stuff that is extremely expensive for you to produce. So figure out ways to work with them and create that mini army of influencers that already love you and want to talk about you.
Yeah, no, it is a great form of guerrilla marketing in a sense, and we both know, your cost to make something before your markup to consumers is your cost. So if you give the influencer something that retails at $1,000, it didn't cost you $1,000 to make, and so there's certainly some efficiencies there. Well, Elizabeth, regrettably, we have reached the top of our hour. It was really lovely having you on the show and hearing about flying solo. We are awaiting the award show, which will be what date?
So it's June 2026, and we will announce the date shortly.
Excellent, excellent. Well, listeners, thanks for tuning in. And Elizabeth, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you so much, Douglas. Thank you for having me.
Bye now.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to The Laws of Style with Douglas Hand. For more information, go to our website at www.hballp.com. And you can also follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Hand of the Law. Thank you for tuning in, and stay stylish.